have yet another illustrious press play. Everybody, we've got another one. So we're gonna get our little air horns as we usually do. We've got a press play for the movie The Rental, which is ironic because this came out in theaters as well as on VOD, so you could go and rent it, online, which makes it a little unique that way, or maybe not so unique since that's kind of like the lay of the land these days. But we watched the movie. We're gonna talk about it. So before we jump into some of our opinions about it, let's just give you some background about the movie. So this film was it's about two couples on an oceanside getaway who grow suspicious that the host of their seemingly perfect rental house may be spying on them. Before long, what should have been a celebratory weekend trip turns into something far more sinister, as well as well kept secrets that are exposed, and the four old friends come to see each other in a whole new light. This movie is unique because it was the first film directed by Dave Franco, who is, of course, the brother of James Franco. And so those wacky two brothers are super into making movies, apparently. And so this film was written by Dave Franco as well as Joe Swanberg and Mike Dembski, who has a storyboard credit on the film. So this is how we usually play it, Addy. We go through the plot, we go through the characters, we go through the cinematography, and then of course the soundtrack for the film. So let's start with the plot. What did you think of the plot of this film?
It was generic.
Mm.
It was, I'd say, even less than generic. It was.
What's less than generic?
I mean, it's everything that's already been tried and done. Like there wasn't any new element to the plot. You know, are we spoiling this? Are we just letting people know what
No,
happened
yeah,
in it?
fuck it, yeah, let it rip.
Yeah, like I mean, all right. The two brothers, where you have the one successful brother and then the fuck up. You have the cheating aspect of it between the two couples. You have the crazy redneck neighbor who is supposed to allegedly be the villain, but then is not the villain. You can see it from a mile away from the two cliffs, over the other side. Like it was completely generic. It was as if you had it's as if a production company, who was it, Black Bear Pictures, I think.
I
uh
believe so, yeah.
yeah, it's like it's almost as if they were just like, I need a name to a movie, and Dave Franco has the name Franco, and people know him from two movies, or three movies. So it's
He's
like,
done a few movies. I don't know.
well, like I said, know him for, so it's like it was just a cheap attempt at a movie. Now, I don't know. It just, you might have to change my mind on it if you thought it was something, but
Mhm.
I mean, goddamn, you and I could have done better.
Yeah, and yet we've yet to. So so there's that.
There's one movie in the archives, so
A part of a movie in the archives, I guess. Um, but yeah, I had a kind of a different view. I actually completely understand everything you were just saying, and I think it's all completely valid. Like there was nothing about this movie that was like revolutionary, right? They didn't do anything terribly different. But I kind of excused all that because of like the few things that they actually did do really well with the movie. One of the things is that I was actually thoroughly not surprised by, but I thought they did really well, was the whole idea of race and how it plays into the plot of the film, in that you have you have the situation where they go for this rental. That they're going for this Airbnb basically. I don't think they said Airbnb during the entire thing, unless I'm
nah, I mean, nah,
mistaken.
I
I
don't
think it was
think so,
just like,
but I think it's
yeah,
assumed.
yeah. So anyways, so they go to this rental, and you have Mina, who's played by Sheila um, Vond, I believe you pronounce her name as, and she She initially tries to book this rental and it's denied, and then uh, Charlie, who's her boyfriend's brother, and her and Charlie work together. He then tries to book the rental and then he's approved, right? Which is a thing that is, weirdly enough, it's happened to me before, where I try to book something and it's denied, and then my girlfriend, who does not share my same skin complexion and name, tries to book something, and she's immediately sort of approved for it. So I thought that was just like and I don't know if maybe it's familiar to me, so therefore
Yeah.
it
Well,
was
it hit
acceptable.
home.
Yeah, it hit home. It was relatable. And so I kind of like that it was something that felt organic to the story. It's the first time that I watched something like, that had to do with something technology wise in this sort of modern era, whether it's Uber or whatever the thing is, some sort of app that you use, that it felt really organic to the thing itself. Like it didn't feel like that was forced. So I thought that was good, and I really like that touch. um and then also I liked,
Well, we should mention that her whole name was, I think, Mina Muhammadin. So it was
yes.
like it was a very Middle Eastern
Mm.
sounding name.
Exactly. And so, and then she confronts the as they get
Yeah,
there, and it was
confronts
like
him.
the
Yep.
most is kind of a cringe moment, because not because she was wrong, but because it's like, oh my god, this is deeply uncomfortable for everybody
Hmm.
involved. And so
I did like that
and
little interaction with them when she did that, and he was like, "Well, why'd you phrase it like that, or why'd you say it like that?"
yeah,
And then she asks him something about like, "So you own this house?"
yeah,
Like kind of like, "How the hell can you afford it?" And he's
exactly,
like,
yeah,
he kind of like replied with the same way she replied to him. So
yeah, exactly,
that
yeah.
was cute.
That was like another,
There you go, Franco. You get that one. You get 1 point.
and that's what I think that they did well with the films, that they had like those little subtle moments, and I think that they even set it up way at the beginning. Like there were a lot of things that were kind of obvious that you knew were just going to happen, like so the killer not being the racist dude that
Yeah.
who was who, or the who they thought, I guess he was just a racist dude, but the racist owner of the, or the
Yeah. Yeah.
keeper of the property, the host or whatever. So, but they do lay some subtle other subtle things that I thought they did really really well. Um, and
How much do
so
you bet the whole broski bit is a Dave Franco and James Franco bit?
I would 100% believe that that's
Oh yeah, like
that's something
that's
they're doing.
them 100
Well,
percent.
well, Franco, he clearly used a lot of his life in the movie, because
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
there was some commentary that he did, that he was talking about the whole scene where they took Molly,
Yep.
and that Dave Franco is actually married to Allison Brie, who's another, she's an
Hmm.
actress in the film, and he was saying that the first time that they actually met, that they essentially did Molly, and that was essentially
Yeah.
sort of what happened. So he used some of his life in the movie, which any good, I think, director would do. Anybody who's creating a story, especially if you're writing that story, you're going to use some of your life in the movie. So it would not surprise me if he did that very lame game with his brother. But another thing that I really appreciated about the film was the idea, the concept of being compromised was another really sort of strong sort of theme, or whatever you want to call it. It was a strong sort of presence in the movie of, they could have very easily avoided a lot of the troubles that they were in if they just submitted to the wrong shit that they did. And at
Hmm.
every turn, they keep trying to push the wrong shit that they do down further, which just digs them deeper into this hole. Like, if so they get so Charlie and Mina get their camera sees them, that the killer, so to speak, sets up all these cameras around the house, and it catches them cheating, on obviously their significant others. And if they just like admit that fact, or just like, hey, all right, this dude already has like the footage and all that other stuff, they could have figured out that the owner or the host wasn't the guy, or they could have just left altogether, and
Hmm.
they wouldn't have been any worse for wear. But at every turn, they just kind of kept digging themselves in, and you know, to me the movie was more about how guilt makes you insane. You know, it makes you do a lot of insane things when you feel guilty about something, which I thought was a good thing to sort of explore.
I had a
And then
little bit of a different take on that though, because
mm,
while I did 100% watching the movie see that as being the driving force for them making all the wrong decisions, it was really like any other slasher movie where you're asking yourself, well, goddamn, why did you do that? That's just dumb. You
well,
shouldn't have done that.
Well, so I will push back against that because I think it was slightly different from a typical slasher movie where they just keep doing stupid things.
Right,
Here,
right.
there was a very short window of time for when like they just all start dying, like which I thought that was phenomenal, right? Because what happens is like somebody dies like midway through the movie, and then everybody else just continually makes like progressively stupid, dumber choices
Right.
that
Yeah, this
eventually
kind of
leads them
happened
to
in
their
like
death.
10 minutes.
In like 10 minutes everybody's just dropping like flies, and I think that's what I appreciated it is that they don't they don't really spend a whole lot of time making stupid decisions. That everything that kind of happens that leads to their death, like in a like that literally leads to their death, um was a reasonable thing. Like, so for instance, with the way that Allison Brie dies, she's trying to drive away, but she runs over and it's kind of fucked up that she
Spikes.
knows kind of like a there's somebody who's there who's basically stalking them, but she just drives away with the car anyways. But neither here nor there. But she drives over the tracks and she runs into a tree. That's
Yeah.
completely plausible, right? Understandable. Dan Stevens, he gets a text from her saying, "Hey, come quick! I drove off the road. Need your help." He goes out there to help her real quick. He bites the dust,
Right.
like all reasonable things. I don't know why the other two were searching into that room. They could have just spent time doing other shit, but they were doing that for some reason. But that essentially like led to their death as well, which is it was all very sort of like it was all very reasonable,
Yeah.
but which was a little different than I think what
Yeah,
we
I mean
usually
it
typically.
I like I said, I watching it, I did fully understand that aspect of it.
Mhm.
That the cheating, the guilt led them to make these decisions. I see it a little bit better now you explaining it. It just still didn't do it for me.
Land with you, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
fair,
just didn't.
yeah. But we're gonna move on here with characters. So weirdly enough, there wasn't a casting by credit. I searched and searched. I literally even poured through the actual credits at the end of the movie to find a casting by credit. Couldn't find one. The most I can get was like a extras casting person,
There was like
which
5 people in the whole movie.
yeah, so I was like, that's a strange thing. But anyways, so because usually I would just try to give a shout out to the whoever the casting by credit is, but the cast here, what we typically do in a section give our good bads, and so like maybe like our runners up for the MVP, then our actual MVP, and then whoever we thought was shit, if we thought anybody was shit. So the person who I'll start off with who I think was kind of shit in this movie. And look, I'm not trying to say that from I actually don't think he was a bad actor. I just think that I don't think he was set up for success with the film, and that's Jeremy Allen White, who played Josh, and that was Charlie's
Yeah.
brother, and Mina's boyfriend. They he's kind of like the fuck up, and he drives I think he drives Lyft or Uber in the movie, and they kind of make him this kind of like down on his luck kind of dude who's kind of apparently he was dating above his whatever his scale was, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
by dating Mina, and that she's really smart and successful, yada yada. um uh I I didn't like him in this role, and again, I'm not trying to shit on him as an actor at all. I just don't at no point was I really buying his character, with the exception of maybe when he was like when he kind of snapped and just started punching uh, uh, Taylor,
Yeah.
the host. That was the only part where I was like, okay, I can kind of buy that a little bit, but everything else was kind of just like, meh. I don't, yeah, I didn't really enjoy it too
No,
much.
I agree. They made his character too generic and then just gave him nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it he has the talent, you know, to pull a character like that to the next level. I would put it more on the writing
Mm,
and the character development. He just had nothing. It was too like this type of movie, when you do have somewhat of a generic plot, you need some good writing that can actually hold the viewer's attention by good acting. So you'll have the good acting with the good writing, you combine it and you have something. His character, they just did not put a whole lot of effort into it at all.
yeah.
Mina's character got a whole lot more effort. You can tell just by the writing and building that backstory. You got the tiny bit of backstory to Jeremy's character when they were walking that trail through the woods, and that was it. And that was kind of like your
Yeah, that wasn't
opening to him, and that's it.
that wasn't even like his backstory though. That was like more backstory
No,
about
no, I
Charlie's
meant like
character.
his character, kind of like he doesn't realize how much of a fuck up he is, even in
Mm,
this moment right now. You
mm.
know, doesn't realize that he's pitting two people against each other without knowing it. So, and I agree with you. He probably would have been the weakest character in the movie, but not by his acting. It was
Yeah, no,
because
yeah,
of the
I don't.
writing.
Yeah, again, I don't think he's a bad actor at all. I just don't think he was set up for success with this particular film. But let's
Oh,
get.
I would like to give a runner up, a mention to
Mhm.
Dan Stevens for not understanding or not being good at cliff bowling when they're trying to hit the dead body off of the cliff with rocks. God, were they bad? That
First
was
of all,
horrible.
I didn't know that there was a name for that, and it's disturbing that
Absolutely.
you know that there's a name for
Us white people do it every weekend.
Yikes. All right. So the cops are definitely going to be sent to your house sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Uh, so actually, weird enough, Dan Stevens was also my runner up. Um, uh, and the reason being was because I know Dan Stevens mainly from the show Legion on
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
FX. And I loved him in Legion. I thought he was fantastic in that. And in this, it kind of solidified it for me because I've seen him in a few different other things, but this was the first time I've seen him outside of Legion that I was like, okay, like he's really good at acting because he's able to play the asshole character who thinks he's like too smart for everything,
Yeah.
and you can never really fully trust, even though like you hear what he's saying, you know what he's talking about, and you're like, all right, I can kind of believe it, but like he's like full of shit, like what I mean,
Yeah.
and he's able to give just that, I don't know, just that something to that character, so his character of Charlie, where it was just like at no point did you really like care for his character or like his character,
Yeah.
but you were like you weren't sure exactly, like you weren't sure if you're supposed to empathize with him a little bit or if you're supposed to hate him. Like he always toted that line, right,
Yeah.
of not fully going in one direction or another, but you always had this pit in the middle, in your stomach, like, nah, you're up to some fuck shit. I just
Yeah.
know it. Like I can't prove it quite yet, but I know you're up to some fuck shit. Um, and so he gets my runner up, but my MVP hands down goes to Toby Huss as Taylor. Uh, it's rare that I see him in something that I don't like him in.
Yeah.
I remember him from one of my favorite shows, which is *Halt and Catch Fire*. One
Oh
of the
yeah.
most underrated shows I think on that was on TV. It
He
was
played the
from
boss, right?
AMC. Yes, or
Yeah.
yes, he played many different roles, but he was one of the things that he did with the show at one point was sort of being the bake roller.
Such a great
Um,
show.
Such a fantastic show, and so I loved him, before this, but this episode he played such a douchebag. He played such a prick, but at the same time he played it great because he played a
Yeah.
prick that ended up not being the killer, but he made you like empathize with the fact that he's a dick, but you're like, fuck, now they're gonna blame him for this, and he clearly isn't the guy, and then they end up like killing him. So it's like he was able to like, and then like just like his the weird things, like the thing with the telescope, right? Where
Mm.
I think it was partly him acting, partly with the way they sort of like shot it and cut it up, that just was like, it was awkward, it was weird,
Yeah.
you weren't sure what to fucking do. Everybody's just standing around like, all right, this is weird, like, and he
He's a
just
good
played it great.
example he's a good example where a good actor can absolutely take a weak script
Hmm.
and sort of make it their own, because I could tell between the writing for the other characters and the few lines that he had, because he had such few lines in the movie, but he pulled them off and he made them memorable. I can guarantee you that was not the straight script. That
Yeah.
was a bit off the cuff that he pulled that off. That first interaction, when he gets there initially, the telescope, the way that they set up that shot with
Hmm.
him leaned up against the hot tub and everything,
Hmm.
and you just have that one static shot of him and he's going through his bit. Yeah,
Hmm.
like that's memorable. You remember that.
Yeah.
So I agree. He would be my top as well.
Yeah. Um, so yeah. And then he had me for a second when he said the line enjoy your last night or something like that, enjoy
Yeah,
the last
yeah.
evening. I was like, are you the killer, like it got me to like hesitate a second, but I was like, nah, it's too on the nose if they make it
I
like
didn't
that.
see it. I didn't see it just because of his reaction to that camera
Mm.
in the bathroom. I was just like, well, I guess actually that came later on. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, maybe there would have been a little bit of like, yeah, I guess he could be. But yeah, his whole reaction to what the fuck is that? Like, I don't know what the hell that is. Like, and he's like, let me call the cops for you. Like, I'll do it.
Exactly.
I don't
And
need you,
again,
Karen. Like, I
that
got this.
yeah, Karen, that whole scene is sort of what I was talking about as far as like what guilt does to you, right? Because at that
Yeah.
moment in time, she should have been like,
The
all
problem could have
right,
been solved right there.
you're not the guy, so
Yep.
something else is going on here. But no, she just freaked out and was trying to get him not to call the cops for some ungodly reason. Like,
Yeah.
who gives a shit if they see, somebody saw you fucking another dude? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
your life is at stake here. Like, but anyways, I digress. Cinematography, the cinematographer for the film was Christian Spregner. Um,
Hmm.
I don't have too much to say about the cinematography. It was pretty, you know, as far as my stupid opinion goes, it was very kind of generic as far as the
Yeah.
cinematography. I thought it fit really well with what they were trying to do, with all of the kind of the stagnant shots that they had, where they just kind of like let things in the frame play themselves out, or where they would have the camera sort of swing,
Hmm.
where they wouldn't break camera, but they would just swing the camera. I thought those scenes and those shots were really good, and added to, I think, the story, and added as a it sort of rebuffed everything else that they were trying to do with the movie. I didn't think it distracted or was ill placed at all.
No, I agree. I don't think there was anything special to it. I can see where they were trying to go with it. I think this is a good example of when you have a low budget, which, this would have been a low budget production, and you maybe don't have the greatest of equipment to be able to pull off some of those big, massive wide shots, moving shots, aerial shots that you could have, done. They had very few of them. They pulled
Yeah,
them off. They just weren't great, you
yeah, I
know.
don't know, dude. They had some pretty majestic wide shots, especially when they
I
first
think
get
it
to the
looked
spot.
majestic because you and I can never afford to live there, and it just looks fantastic. But
I mean, isn't that the goal of it all, to make us wish that it was us?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I don't have a whole lot to talk about for the
yeah, I agree.
cinematography. I thought the way that the movie was edited was fairly competent. Although I would probably need to watch it again
My
to
big
really
thing
sort
with
of.
the editing portion of it was, I think they were trying to go with something similar to how, not necessarily how like It Follows was shot, but those stagnant, shots trying to make the scene drag on a little bit longer than it normally would if you had multiple camera angles. I think they were trying to go for that. I just don't think they executed it as well as they could have.
Mm,
It wasn't terrible, and some of the acting in it. Again, Jeremy's like character, like in some of those scenes, you just did not have enough oomph to get it, past tuning out. Like, I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I was cleaning dishes while I was watching this movie because or like the first 30 minutes, it didn't get to me.
Mm.
It just and it had to do a lot with the cinematography and the editing
Mm.
along with the writing.
Mm. So basically, just everything of the, of the movie didn't work for you.
No,
Uh,
I appreciated the fact that they had the longest lasting cell phone battery life ever. Because from when he loses his dog, which was the star of the movie, let's face it,
Everybody has the light on their phone on. Yeah.
Charlie, Charlie was the man. When he lost his puppy midday and they went out to look for him and they never recharged their batteries, but somehow they lasted throughout the entire night.
Yeah, and they all
I
had their like
appreciated that right there.
they all had their flashlights on their phone
Yep.
going on pretty much the entire time. Yeah.
Million
I,
dollar house and no flashlights in it.
hey, hey, what are you gonna do? Hey, you got to
That's
make some
Dave Franco
concessions
writing for
somewhere.
you right there.
So let's jump to the soundtrack. The music by credit on this film is Danny Bensi as well as Sonder Joranis. Um, and I'll say just like I said about the cinematography, I didn't think the score was anything to that kind of blew my socks off, but it was competent enough for the movie. Like the main score of the film, I thought was uh, it was eerie, it was a little creepy, it was pretty spot on to what you would want for this type of movie, but it didn't do anything terribly special for me. Um, and so yeah, therefore it didn't really play a big factor in the movie for it. I always love it when a movie has the score play a big factor that you both notice and don't
Yeah.
notice at the same time. And I don't think that this movie necessarily did that, but it didn't distract from the movie. So, you know.
Yeah, it was like you said, it was competent. It got a little bit better towards the end. And what I did appreciate was it wasn't overkill
Mm,
when the slasher was killing,
mm,
you know, because
mm.
sometimes you really do get distracted by the amount just of music playing
Shrieking
during a
and shit. Yeah.
dramatic exactly like so they didn't do that, so I did appreciate that. But I agree it wasn't anything memorable. Like I love the soundtrack to to the first well the only Hannah movie when it
Mm,
was the Chemical Brothers who did that.
mm.
Like that was memorable for me and it was
Mm.
needed for that movie. For this one, yeah, it wasn't memorable. It didn't detract from it really. I did appreciate they didn't, you know, it wasn't overkill, but yeah, there was nothing really to it.
Yeah. With all that being said, we're into the extra notes section of the review. My few couple or few notes. The one I'll start with is they could have went with a different thing for the look of the killer, because it was like
Too generic.
I wanted to laugh because I was like, yo, is this the dude from Six Flags, like with the weird commercial, the
Yes,
dun, dun,
I
dun, dun, dun,
thought the
dun, dun.
same thing.
And so I was like, I don't know, we could have did something different with that. I don't know, just even like have him like fucking wear like a fucking trucker hat or some shit. I don't know, something like just something that's just like, all right, make it a
I
little.
don't know, man. That Six Flags reference that's perfect because you watch this movie and you're like, man, this guy probably runs the 40 in like four
Yo,
two. Like
oh
it
my
was
god,
insane,
my dude was booking
insane.
it. Yo,
I
yo,
mean,
I saw.
he was smiling back. Usain Bolt taking that photo, like it
Yo,
was
the NFL
insane.
is literally calling him right now to
Yeah,
see,
he'd
hey,
be the fastest
boss,
linebacker on the field. I guarantee
yo,
you.
we're gonna have a combine just for you. Like we're just gonna open it up just for you.
Like
And
I
so,
literally had to laugh a little bit at it because I'm like, God damn, he's fast. Like
holy shit, dude.
he's way too
Um,
fast.
and I'm pretty sure that was Dave Franco playing the killer. So I wonder if it was him the whole
I
time, or if
think
they had
so.
like a
Yeah.
stunt person, you know, uh, some person doing it.
Yeah, because there's no
But yeah,
credits for anything showing the killer.
yeah. Or maybe they did, and I just didn't notice it. Hold on
I'm
one
not
sec.
finding it.
I'll go back and check. But yeah. So that was one of the things that I noticed. Another thing that I'll actually, you know what? They actually did note it. Anthony Molinari was labeled as
That's who it
the
was.
intruder. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it.
So yeah, that's him. Weirdly enough, he actually kind of looks like Franco, like a really old version of Franco. But
It did. I mean, you
uh,
only saw him from the back, and it kind of had like that bro hair. So I was like, yeah, I could see it being Dave Franco.
yeah. Um, and so yeah, back to my few post mortem notes. Um, uh, if you're following kind of like the logic of the movie, is what we're supposed to pick up on this that there are worse things than racist? I think, and which I'm not, there's a debate that goes on with that, but I'm just trying to follow like the logic of the movie, right? Like, so it goes. We think from the beginning that this racist dude was the killer, but it wasn't him. It was somebody who essentially rented the room, rented the house before the couples rented it, and he sets up all these cameras, makes a copy of the key, then comes back and kills them, right? Um, but it felt like they talked up the whole racism part, but kind of just like dropped that off a cliff in favor of, oh, here's this dude who's
Literally.
just kind of running around murdering everybody. So I'm like, what's the moral to that story? Especially since we don't ever find out who the killer is, so we don't know what the motives are. We don't know what's happening. So are we just left to think, oh,
It can't be. I don't think. I agree with you. It was a little bit confusing trying to follow it because you do go from racism to infidelity to guilt to bad decision making. But when you look at the ending of the movie, when he's at the new apartment and he is looking at all the different families, the ending scene of him attacking the couple in the bed, that was that yoga couple, the two white people. So it's like, okay, well, you had a whole diverse group of people that you were monitoring, and they didn't select, like the black couple, for example, to kind of go after. So I don't think it had to do with racism. I think they might have been trying to just, build up
yeah,
Taylor the character as the
as the
bad
racist?
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I agree with you. It kind of lost its gusto. Like it fell apart after a little while.
yeah, or that they kind of meant for it to kind of drop into the background, but
Or
I yeah.
or if it's maybe that they were trying to say that maybe the perception of racism isn't always what it is to everybody, but maybe just that person who is dealing with it in their life. So,
Hmm.
when Mina's character would bring that up, you could see the other three white people. They're like, I don't really want to like have this discussion right now because I don't think this is it. Like, I don't think Taylor is, doing that. Or, maybe they just like they're trying to sweep it under the rug. Cause I mean, like, we've been in those situations. Like, like your listeners of yours, like they don't know. Like I grew up in a Muslim family. I'm foreign. I'm Bosnian. Like that has happened to me in the past where it's like not everybody saw the same thing that I saw, and I'm sure it's happened to you too. So I think it could have been one or the other. It could have been that they were trying to hide the race, or I'm sorry, they were trying to play up the racism to make Taylor look like he is the slasher, the bad guy, or they maybe were just trying to play on the fact that maybe in a group of friends, of white friends, where you do have one or two minorities, maybe they don't stick up for that minority friend, because
Yeah.
that's the case. That
I,
does happen all the time.
well, I think both could be true at the same time, right?
Yeah.
That they were trying to accomplish essentially both in that case. But I thought it was just interesting that like that was just kind of dropped off, and I don't think the killer himself really had any motive outside of like he just likes
Well,
killing
let's talk
people.
about
Like
that because yeah,
yeah,
there was nothing. Like it didn't. You didn't get an answer at the end of it.
yeah, which honestly I'm perfectly fine with because really again like it goes back to what I'm like one of the things actually that I wanted to say that I'm missing was that another sort of theme of the movie I thought was that we impress upon people what we want to impress upon them, and that we
Mm-hmm.
just talked about the whole racism thing, right? So, if you look at a situation, you can choose to see it, or maybe sometimes you're not choosing, but just looking at
Yeah,
a
yeah,
situation and be like, yeah, there's some racist shit going on. But if you're a person who you don't have to like necessarily deal with that, and that's not the first thing that sort of comes to mind, well, you're impressing on it the fact that you don't see racism, right? And you're like,
yeah.
no, like I don't see that at all, and that's you projecting onto that thing.
Yep.
But it's our own projections that tends to be sort of what prevails, right? That we see
Yeah.
what we want to see in any scenario, and so I think that's sort of what they kind of carry through with the killers is that now we're just left to assume what we want to assume with the killer, whether he was doing it for some specific purpose, or whether, I don't know, whatever we want to project onto the killer, we can project. And so I
Yeah.
saw a lot of online, a lot of people sort of like talk about like how they hated the fact that there's no payoff, and I think that kind of is the payoff, right? That the kind of moral of the story is that we're like, so with the whole time they're projecting onto Taylor the fact that they think he's this dude who's stalking them, right? When they
Right.
don't actually like know that. And even when he gets there and he's like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?" They're still projecting onto him what they
Yeah.
what they think. And so I
Yeah,
think that
I
that's
think you're kind of on that path because they did it very suddenly throughout the movie, you know, with the telescope.
mhm.
First bringing it in and that whole discussion, and then them even looking through the telescope later on and projecting him as that other person at the end of that telescope, where maybe it was more their own inherent biases that they would have. So yeah, I think you're probably on the right track there, thinking that's probably what it is, and the payoff is that there really wasn't a payoff.
Yeah. Yeah, that we're left to just project whatever the fuck we want to project onto the movie. Another quick note: the first thing I thought when I saw the dog was like, "Oh yeah, that dog's dead," and then the dog ended up being the only one alive, so that was a nice presence
The cutest fucking
surprise.
dog ever, man.
Yeah,
Like, oh, that dog.
yeah, and the last thing I'll say is this kind of reminded me of a Nolan movie in that the layers of suspense that they tried to build with it. I don't think it was
Tried.
no, yeah,
Tried.
I don't think it was exactly a Nolan film from that regard, but I think that they try to have like multiple things happen at the same time that would build suspense, which is typically like what he does with his movies, right? He has like 18 different scenes going on at the same time, and each one are different stages of of its suspense, and it just keeps building and building and building and building. And I think that they did that, especially with the scene where with Alison Brie's character Michelle, when she goes when she drives off and she crashes the car, that was done at the same time that they were trying to get rid of this body. uh and so like you have all these things sort of happening at the same time, and I thought that at times they did a pretty good job with that. But
I
yeah,
mean,
all
I
in
thought I
all,
was watching Memento.
yeah, no, that's not even good to joke about. There, at no point were you watching Memento during watching this movie. So, retract those statements, young man.
Okay,
Um,
Interstellar. How about that? Because that
no, not
clearly
even
sucked.
worse. No, okay, all right. We're not going to get into this
You and
debate.
I are
This
gonna
is
have a whole discussion about this one day,
we could one
where you
day.
don't get angry and walk away.
I never get angry, and in fact, I'm always curious as to why you guys. Anyways, that's a whole separate thing that we can get into at a later date and time. So the rental is out right now. You can rent it pretty much anywhere. You can rent movies these days on VOD, and it's in select theaters as well. So yeah, go
Seventy-two
check it out.
percent on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's not doing too bad, and I wonder how much of that is just people just dying to see movies, and they're just like, fuck
Yeah.
it, just give us something. I don't care, I don't care what it is. We'll rate it high. Just
Hey,
make
there's a
sure it's there.
possibility, according to Dave Franco, that there could be a sequel. So here's to that.
Uh, Wolf. Yeah, I would not want
Here's
that.
the quote. It was
Just
the intention from the beginning to leave the ending ambiguous enough that we carry on the story if given a chance. So who's the
there's
next studio? White Bear Productions. They're gonna give him the money
there is precisely zero reason to continue this story at all.
because I
I
have a
find
very
this
strong idea for what I would want to do with a sequel. Kill a few more
yeah.
people.
I mean, look, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a sequel to the movie, but I don't think that's even remotely necessary.
Let me
But
ask you one
whatever.
quick question. One
Mm-hmm.
quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Box office totals showing on Wikipedia as 400 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the movie cost more than 400 grand to make?
I would have to assume so. Yeah, sure.
Think so?
Yeah, it's got big enough actors and actresses there. They did keep the production really small. They've literally only got
Mm-hmm.
basically like two locations. I mean, multiple locations if you count sort of like the ending montage, but those are just like really quick things
I
that
mean, that first apartment was Dave Franco's apartment. So
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, look, it wouldn't surprise me if they just use their own shit, um, but it seemed like they kept the production really small. But
Yeah.
you got Allison Brie, you got Dan Stevens. You know, they brought on some people who were like, okay, this isn't all unknown people and shit. This is fellas who
The
are
reason why I
relatively new.
ask is because it felt like it was one of those movies where friends had gotten together to make this movie.
It
You
felt like
know,
that's a degree, but it felt like those friends were big enough, names where it's just like, I mean, we need something here, Like I just see all of those people and the entire production, and not to mention like the rest of the production, um, costing at least some money, and
yeah.
and so I think that's you're I could probably easily look this up on
So what
Wikipedia.
you're saying, it's a box office flop. Got it.
No, not at all,
No, I'm
dude.
just
It's
messing with you.
fucking. I was like, what? It's a fucking pandemic. Like I don't think
Nobody went to see it in theaters.
I don't think the distributors are like, oh my god, like what are we gonna do? This fucking movie
Well, they
didn't
definitely
return
are
all this
saying,
money.
"Oh my God," right about now.
Why? Seeing those returns?
Just seeing the future of,
Oh
sending
well,
a
yeah.
movie to theaters.
Overall, yeah. Let me see if I can see what the budget was. It does not give us the budget here.
No, I couldn't
Um,
find it.
yeah. I don't know what the fuck the budget was, but I would have to assume it was in the I don't know. It was, I think it was well over, like we're talking in the millions. We're not talking
Yeah.
anything below $1 million for this film. But who knows what those returns are going to be. That's just the box office numbers. We don't know what the VOD numbers are
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
So who knows. But yeah, nonetheless, we pressed play on the movie The Rental. We certainly hope that you did as well. Let us know in the comment section below what you think about it, what you like, what you didn't like. If you think our take was stupid, if you think it was dope, I don't know. Just write something, interact, and yeah, and do that below.